In the NBA, everyone has a signature shoe. Different styles, different colors, different patterns, and you can go to the store and buy a pair for yourself. Do you ever say you want the new Nike basketball shoe? No, you say you want the Kobe, the LeBron, or the KD. And although arguably in the US, NFL players are just as big as NBA players, they don't get that same luxury. But in that way, the NFL and NBA have always been different. The NBA promotes the players, while the NFL promotes the NFL. Even the biggest stars in the league don't have a signature cleat. Patrick Mahomes with Adidas, Justin Jefferson with Under Armour, and Travis Kelce with Nike. None of them have their own thing. Yeah, sometimes they'll have player exclusive colorways and maybe a little bit of input in next year's design. It's not a signature cleat and it's not just for them, but that is slowly changing. Now more and more guys are starting to customize cleats to make it at least look and feel like it's unique to them. Kobe's, LeBron's, Travis Scott's, you name it, guys are customizing it now, although underneath that, it's still the existing upper made by the manufacturer. Until now. Now, Jalen Ramsey is the first NFL player in the league to break down that barrier and come up with his own player exclusive cleat made just for him. These are the JR1, and only 4 people in the world have these. Jalen Ramsey, Factory Lab, who created them, Jordan's cleat customizer, Jordan, who we actually have a video with coming out in 2 days, and me. This is a pretty surreal moment. Now, if you don't know who Jalen Ramsey is, he's a corner on the Miami Dolphins and has been arguably the best at his position for almost a decade. Now, aside from that, he is meticulous about everything he wears on the field and how it helps his in-game performance. He was the first one to test out Adidas laceless football cleats, my favorite cleat ever, the Freak 22 Ultras. He hand-designed his own custom face mask that tons of guys around the league adopted this year, which I have as well. And now he took it into his hands to design a football cleat that works exactly for him. Now this is where Factory Lab joins the conversation. So if you're not aware, Factory Labs is a lifestyle brand based out of LA. It's founded by Omar Bailey, and Omar was the former head of the footwear innovation lab for Yeezy. But in 2022, when things at Yeezy kind of went a little sideways, Omar left and created his own company, Factory Labs. Now, being based out of LA, Jalen at that time was also playing for the Rams and lives in LA in his off season, so the two linked up. So in today's video, we worked with Factory Labs to give you the complete behind the scenes on everything that went into making Jalen's cleats. Step 1, they had to have an idea. So Factory Lab and Jalen met up and talked about everything he'd want in a cleat. They pulled inspiration from everything he loved and hated from his time with Nike and Adidas, and some things that he wished he could do in the future. Now, it literally all started with this drawing on this notepad here. You can see the basics of a traction plate, maybe a 2-piece system like he had with his old Vapor Edge Speeds. He wanted a bunch of heel padding, an LV-esque silhouette, sock booty, and a strap across the front. Now that they have that, we need Jalen's foot. So before doing anything, Factory Lab wanted a mold of Jalen's foot, and that way they could make it exactly fit to him without him needing to be there every time they need to make a test. Now, if you've ever done any casting, you're pretty familiar with this process. Basically what they did is they took Jalen's foot, they wrapped it in plaster, let it dry, took his foot out, poured in some kind of foam that gives him a hard replica of Jalen's foot, and from there they sand it and smooth it down into something that they can use to build around. Next step, gonna make our first renders. So pretty much everything today starts as a 3D model. So what they did is they took this casting of Jalen's foot, took a 3D scan of it, imported it into their software, and now they could work with this 3D model of Jalen's foot and build everything on top of it. So they took all of Jalen's wants and desires and put it into this 3D model to give us the first look of what Jalen's cleats could actually look like. And this thing is sick. They played with all the different colors, patterns, and styles that could work with this thing. And this is honestly my favorite shot right here, because you can see all the different pieces that went into this thing. Anyway, so now that they have a 3D model of this, they gotta start picking the physical materials that they're going to build it out of. For the upper, they chose some kind of knit material with a 3D printed nylon overlay. Super breathable, super durable, super stretchy. And then from there, they work on all the overlays that go over top of it, like adding Jalen Ramsey's logo on the heel. Now, aside from the upper, we also have the traction plate, which is a completely different story. So unlike the upper that you could basically rapidly prototype, use scissors, cut out shapes, glue them together and work with something, these traction plates are always going to be some kind of hard plastic, which you don't have the same flexibility with. Now for that, it involves a bunch more of little steps. So basically they take a 3D rendering of the traction plate, they 3D print it, then they use that 3D print to make another mold, and then within that mold, they can pour the plastic to make the real one. And finally, they can check to make sure it still fits his foot. So after all that, the casting, the plaster, the molding, the 3D printing, the renders, everything, you finally have the first version of Jalen Ramsey's cleat that he could hold in his hand. And finally, now that they have one they can hold in their hand, that's where Jalen starts to get more involved again. Factory Lab and Jalen meet back up, and he gets to hold his cleat in his hand for the first time, try it on, sees what he likes, sees what he don't like, and they can make a couple tweaks. This photo here is the first time Jalen ever got to hold his cleats in his hand. So cool that we have that. Okay, so everything goes well, Jalen is happy with it. Now they have to make sure this thing is safe and performs to the level that Jalen needs. Now, I was never given any context to who this kid was, but you can see the smile on his face. This man is living out everyone's dreams. So they tested out Jalen's cleat on the field on grass and turf to see how it cuts, see how it moves, stops, lateral movement, everything that they would need to go into it. This is step one. And most of the tweaks in this actually came from the traction plate, not the upper. You can see here they changed a bunch of things about the traction plate, like the height, the stud spacing, where the Child of God and Jalen Ramsey's logo are, and just the overall look. But now, after all that, we have one of the first working versions of the JR1 football cleat. But that's how you make one. What if you want two? What if you need 100? Taking a one-off and making it accurate, repeatable, and cool is a completely different beast. Now, I don't know how many of you are interested in the manufacturing side of this, but you can see there's so many different steps that go into making the upper, gluing everything together, running it through different machines. It is a lengthy process. Now, I don't know how many of these pairs they created in the first run, but you can see they created 2 of every colorway. There's 10 colorways, so 20 cleats. Give 10 of them to Jalen so he can test them out, find out which colorways he likes, and that way they could go back and make more of those colorways in the future, and give 10 to Factory Labs so they could start to do some of their own performance testing. Now, to be used in the NFL likes to do some of their own individual performance testing. We've seen it all the time on like their helmet ratings, and now they do it on cleats as well. So they took the cleats, stripped them down, looked at all the materials, hooked them up to robots, and did a bunch of different tests. Some of the ones we're showing you here is based on the heel cup, and you can see they're testing the lateral movement of it and how it kind of gives and moves on turf. Now, after all that, the summary was that these tested 80% better than anything used on the field currently by Nike and Adidas. For a first cleat, that's outstanding. Okay, so after everything that's happened in the last year, it leads up to this moment in November. Jalen is happy, the NFL's happy, Factory Labs is happy. Jalen makes his debut to the practice field in a cleat that no one recognizes, and it sets the media world on fire trying to figure out what this thing is. Now, after that, Jalen wears these every day in practice in some of the basic colorways, and for games, he's breaking out custom pairs every single week with Jordan Diab, his customizer. And after that, I guess you could say the rest is history. Now, personally, now that Jalen's wearing these, I don't really know where this is gonna go. Taking a look at my pair, I absolutely love the silhouette of this thing. I love the colorways, I like the combos, I like the strap, I love the booty, the traction plate is nice, and it just so happens that me and Jalen have the same size feet, so I could try these things on. They are so comfortable. Now, there is another company out there making a similar product, and that's gonna be player exclusive, that made the Beast Mode cleat this year, except that's a completely different business model. Beast Mode is marketed to the public and is made to fit a player that has the same attributes that Marshawn Lynch had when he played. And then they're using his branding of Beast Mode to package that together and sell it to the consumer. But these are not marketed to the consumer. These were made specifically for Jalen. There are no sizes to these. These are a size Jalen. It's just his foot. Now, Factory Lab also did make a training shoe for Jalen to go along with it that looks very similar and has the same feel to it. So maybe they'll take that training shoe and sell that to the public and leave the cleats for Jalen. Really don't know. They also do sell a bunch of other shoes on their website, and one of them they're releasing an exclusive colorway with Trent Williams, so maybe that's the angle. Who knows, maybe eventually they'll mass produce these. They'll make them in every color and every size, and anyone can wear the JR1s or JR2s or whatever they'll be at that point. I don't really know. All I can say is these things are sick. It is so cool what they've done, and it's cool to see the NFL guys starting to build their own brands the same way NBA players have for years. Again, thank you to Factory Lab for helping us with this video. Coolest project I've ever been a part of, and thank you for everyone that watched the video. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll answer everything I can. Anyways, I'll check you next time.